Evening. Welcome to another episode of AUA Ask Us Anything. And today, once again, we have Josh and Denny, and we're gonna call them the yin and yang now of Buddha Dharma. You can tell that
No,
we're yin and yang.
well, which one's yin, which one's yang,
It
right?
doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. They're the same.
Can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah. So we have an interesting topic today. Why don't you kind of give us the kind of the background on that? Why did we kind of gravitated towards this guy?
Well, today's shows start with the title here. Um, Corona 19, hypertension, and key. Now, notice didn't say the mainstream word for it because it attracts algorithms, which can be good or bad. But the main point today that we're going to mention about the CV is just enough to move on to solutions and prevention, right? So that's not going to be the big part of the show. Just enough to move into how we can overall switch our focus to solutions and prevention. But the title came from last show we did a thing on chi, basically life force energy, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
there's any time at the end, there's an addendum with other questions I have. We might be able to pick up with that. But what so yeah, like I said, the intention for this is not to get any reactions, but it's to switch once we know what's wrong or what the thing is, and we can focus on prevention and solutions because hardly anybody can argue with that, even if they're just paying lip service to those things. Pretty much everybody's on board unless you're like a nihilist or something. So, I actually have plenty of questions on the corona, but it's beyond the scope of this show, and it wouldn't be really helpful here either. Um, and then one important point to point out, though, a lot of this that we're experiencing now with this it seems to be boiled down on a deep level to fear of sickness and death. So that's not what our focus is going to be on so much today. It's how we can respond to that. Um, because what we put our energy on, um, what do we put our attention and focus on is what we give energy to. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the horrors and what's wrong and how bad it is, so we just get the general facts that we're going to put out here briefly, and then we're focused on what we can do about it, right? What the
Right.
what the
Right.
solutions
Right.
are, and then I'll go. Denny's got a presentation prepared, and I'll interject here and there with some other notes I have prepared. So with that, if there's anything else you'd like to add to the intro, otherwise, take it away, Denny.
Okay, thank you, Josh. So, as it turns out, I just right before the show, right before Josh came on, I got an email from Google that one of my video that I put on my personal channel, not the official Does I Record channel, which was really a repost of another video that was done in Cantonese that talks about the corona, and it was taken down because it was considered medical advice, and it
Oh,
wasn't even mine. It wasn't even mine.
thank
Yeah.
you for
So
that, Denny.
so yeah. So I am very grateful for Josh to keep reminding me that not only for our own protection that we don't want to talk about we don't want to be giving away medical advice, um, but that there's almost 100% chance that Google would take it down if you do give medical advice.
And thank you for reminding that too. It should have been the first thing I remembered. So we're here to help remind each other and practice mindfulness together, right? So yes, this is not medical advice. This is things we found online and things we found helpful in our own practice for prevention and general health in general. But now this is not considered medical advice. So before you do anything that might be suggested here, do your own research and ask a healthcare professional before you engage in any of the topics I hear here too, especially if you have a health condition, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just another, just kind of put it in a humor way. Just think of the nail at the hammer. Okay, we only got one hammer, which is mindfulness and the practice of chi. So, you know, we're just hitting it. Okay. All right. So let's go. We spent quite a bit of time on that already. So all right. So the topic of today is corona, hypertension, and importance of qi, and we're going to be focusing on qi, the importance of qi, and this is a continuation of the talk that Josh and I gave last month, always at the last Tuesday of the month, last month when we talked about Qigong and Tao Yin. And so this is kind of continuation of that, but I thought that it would be good to kind of bring in the present day situations, which is the corona. Um, so facts about the corona, and this is just the facts, ma'am. Okay, we're not adding anything here. So lots of people had died, that's for sure. Now, as of yesterday, we have 500,000 people. We had just crossed the 500,000 mark. So you might say, well, what does that mean? Because we have 320 million people in the country, so that's less than 0.2%. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot. Okay, that's more people than we have in St. Louis. And that's almost as many people as we have in San Francisco, especially if you don't count the homeless. That's a lot of people. So right now, as it stands, this year anyway, it's only been a year, and it's a number 3 cause of death now after heart attacks and cancer. So a little bit more facts. Turns out that not everyone who had been tested corona positive had a severe reaction. A lot of people, it was just like a mild flu. Maybe I actually have a niece who caught it, and it was just one night, and then the next day was fine. So this is a kind of a strange disease that not it doesn't affect everyone the same. But in any case, just think about how many people have been affected. It's close to 30 million people, 28.2 million as of yesterday. So that's almost 10% of the population that got infected, but only a fraction of that became seriously ill. Okay, so the statistic is that about 1/6 of the people who got infected, who were tested positive, actually was seriously enough. So it was serious. It's not just that they had a reaction, but the reaction was severe enough that they had to go to the hospital. Now, if you do your math, and because those two numbers are easy to find, which is the total infected and the total death. So then, if you do your math, then it's actually pretty simple. It basically says that 1/6 of the 28.2 million is 4.7 million. So 500,000 death means that the death rate among those who are hospitalized is about 10%, 10 to 11%. Now that's pretty high. That's pretty high. Imagine you have a car and you have to take it into the dealership for maintenance, and every 10 times the serviceman comes out and says, sorry, it's total, you got to get a new one. That's not very good statistics. That's a bad business model. Okay, so for that, it's pretty high. Now, so a little bit more facts. So it turns out that out of the people who actually die, I'm talking about now the 11% of the people who actually 10.6% of them, many of them have high blood pressure. That is a fact. So some data from China and from US show that about 50% of the people who had died, who suffer severe enough reaction that they went into the hospital and eventually die, 50% of those have high blood pressure. So that's sort of what we want to talk about, is really what's going on. What is high blood pressure has to do with qi? That's what we really want to talk about. So, and then more data, some of the initial data, of course, everybody knows that in Italy, they were the first country that was really hit badly in Europe in the first wave. They showed that 76% of the people had high blood pressure. Now today, if you take all the data, there are plenty of reports out there that says that this corona thing really is bad for people who have underlying sickness. So, for example, my dad has high blood pressure, a little bit, not so bad, but he does have diabetes and dementia. Okay, so he would be a very high risk group. Chances are, if he suffer, he's infected, he won't make it. Okay, so if you have any one of those, you have no chance of leaving the hospital. 99% of anyone that has any one of those underlying conditions would not make it. Now, I think I want to do a little reflection here. I mean, come on, the United States is still a first world country. We have pretty good healthcare system, especially if you have insurance or if you're covered under Medicare. But yet, our citizens are not healthy. 1/3 of our citizens have high blood pressure. The people who have died from the corona, um, most of them are seniors, which means that they were all covered by Medicare, which means that they even though they had high blood pressure, they were properly medicated. Okay, so what's going on? So you would think that if you go to the doctor and the doctor said that you have high blood pressure and it gives you medicine, and then holy behold, your blood pressure goes down, you're a normal person, you're cured, right? Now, the following slide is not an opinion. The following slide is an experience. I take care of my parents who are in the mid 80s. My wife take care of her mother who are all in the 90s. We know a lot about our healthcare system. We know that our doctors are not really there to fix problems. They're there to fix symptoms. We know that. Every time you go in there, I personally, when I go in there and I'm looking at the doctor, right? Josh, we talk about the white coat syndrome.
Yes, that's a really important point, the white coat syndrome.
Yeah. So as soon as I see the doctor, or my dad sees the doctor, our blood pressure goes up, and then they won't let you leave until they give you a prescription.
And this is a documented, studied fact. There's tons of studies, as far as I know, on the white coat syndrome. You can look it up and how that works.
Yeah. Now, I have a lot of respect for the medical professionals. Don't take me wrong. But I tell you, man, the guy that works behind the counter at the Walgreens, they're not the only salesman for the pharmaceutical industry. The doctors are trained to. I mean, for every sickness, there's a drug, and maybe two, and there's two, you get both. Okay,
And
yeah.
a lot of them cause side effects that require other drugs for the side effects as well.
That's right. That's right. So I remember that my doctor keep wanting my dad to do a test on his kidney, and I said, well, there's nothing wrong with his kidney. Oh no, he says we're trying to make sure that there's no side effect. I said, what?
And that's another thing, right? There's so many, I shouldn't say required to do that,
Yeah.
but that's, they often are known to cause side effects, which then more prescriptions are prescribed to treat those side effects. And yeah, that's another thing as well. That's a common criticism is lots of tests ordered that do all those tests need to be ordered? Well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, enough of that. So I I understand all that. So I became the prime contractor. I became the prime contractor, and so I take care of my parents in terms of keeping them healthy, and I let the doctors take care of the sickness. That's the only thing you can do. You just, especially if you have a elderly parent who has a number of specialists, and I mean, I remember one time my mom has a problem with the knee, and I got a referral to a doctor, and after about half an hour and I realized that then they asked me more, and then I realized that no, I got the wrong specialist. I need the one for the knee, not for the heel.
Wow. Yeah, it's I think there's a term, at least in Missouri, called a healthcare power of attorney. Maybe that's so you're if I'm getting this right, you're authorized to make healthcare decisions on behalf of someone else who's not able to
Yeah,
make them on
yeah.
their own.
I don't have that. I don't have that piece of paper, but by default I am, because I have to translate everything.
I see. Okay. So yeah, that's a right that people can look up too. A healthcare power of attorney. It might be a different or a term in other states.
At the
A
minimum,
legal thing.
you need a letter, maybe not as formal as a power attorney. At the very minimum, you need a letter that says that you can talk to the insurance company.
Okay. Yeah, I think there could be standard forms to just print out and sign as well. I don't know if they need to be notarized or what, but that's another thing. If anybody's interested, they can look up, find out about.
Okay, okay. So these are again, this is really just my own experience that I want to share. So, but now this is the punchline. The punchline is one third of a citizen, 100 million and more, have high blood pressure, but high blood pressure by itself is not a sickness. But yet the doctors treat it as a sickness. It is in fact a warning signal that there's something wrong with you, either physically or mentally or both. So again, we're not giving out medical advice. I'm not asking you not to go see a doctor. My parents are medicated for high blood pressure. No problem with that. But I think that what we want to share with you is how there are alternatives. How do you really take responsibility for your health by really understanding the true cause for high blood pressure. So
And Denny, I think this would be a good point to jump in with some of my other points here about that. Yeah, and my mother, she's on high blood pressure medication as well. Um, so this shouldn't go off too much in a tangent. There's just some points. So if this is a lot of information, which it probably is, you can just pause this and go back. I just wanted to make a quick note. If anybody's on the audio version, we're going to try to, some of the charts coming up, we'll try to verbalize those as much as we can. They're fairly visual, but not too much there. So, like Denny was saying, we're not against traditional or Western medicine, right? Because that's if I break a bone, or if I get in an accident, or if I have a heart attack, or anybody I know have, the ER is probably the best place to go. Not to just seek out alternative medicine at that point. In Western medicine can be divided into allopathic and naturopathic, and they often say allopathic, folks often die from the cure, while with naturopathy, folks can die from the ailment. So allopathic basically means the traditional Western medicine, and naturopathic means, the alternative stuff. So like I say, Western medicine's not an enemy, and but they do have a lot of power, right? So it's daunting to go up against trillions of dollars in doctors and experts and pills and treatments and biotechs and locking down the planet pretty much overnight. But fighting something rarely, in my experience, helps change it at all. So like, bring it back to the Dharma, the Dhammapada, the 5th verse says, hatred is indeed never appeased by hatred in this world. It is appeased only by loving kindness. This is an ancient law. So, I won't advocate nor discourage lawsuits and protests. But the thing here is that there's other options that Denny and I are going to get into to consider, in addition to, especially on the individual level, starting off. And the biggest thing is, doing your own research. There's because if you don't, it's kind of, this is maybe not an apt analogy, but it's like going around telling people you have a search engine in your pocket and you can look up anything, but then you spend more time, telling people that instead of actually using the search engine, right? And this can lead to encouragement and empowerment and self-responsibility too, that you have a role to play in your own healthcare and your loved ones as well. And so when you do, then you can respectfully ask questions and present what you learn to the healthcare professionals from a place of care and not concern, because care comes from thoughtfulness. But if we have a sense of concern, that's actually based on fear. So it is possible to care without being concerned, right? And in our attitude determines our attitude. So we go into the doctors, thinking that we know it all, right? And then we're not showing them respect, and we try to denigrate and invalidate their industry and profession. They're probably not going to be too open to that. So the more we can offer respect and just a genuine curiosity with a decent attitude, then we can then that's
Yeah,
how we
yeah.
can approach them, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the two points I want to pick up on what Josh said. One is you kind of mentioned briefly that there's a lot, the Western doctors has a lot of power over our care, and the power comes from the insurance company. Is who is going to pay for this and what are they willing to pay for. And so a lot of my friends, they go to acupuncturists, but yet when they go there, they get different kinds of treatment. Um, but at least so I remember talking to them and said, well, so what is it that you do, acupuncture or this other thing? He said, well, we do this other thing because that really helps our patient, but we can't get paid for it. So we always, become an acupuncturist because at least the doctor recognized that. And then the other thing that I want to just kind of, because the way by now, kind of the medical industrial complex, they recognize at least that that there is an alternative approach to pain management. And so they're willing to pay for the alternative medicine just for pain management. Okay. Now, in fact, let me stop for a minute. So we get these things all screwed up. Okay. So when we talk about the Chinese or the Asian or the Indian way, those are the traditional medicines. The Western medicine is, in fact, the alternative medicine. All right. All right. Okay. So,
That's a good point, and
yeah.
then even the Western medicine here, yeah, they're yeah, that's a good point there. They're actually getting on board. They see the writing on the wall, kind of, so to speak, and that they're give at least lip service to holistic practices, right? So you can actually hold them to that if they have something in writing saying they're trying to be more, or they want to be more holistic. You can possibly hold them to that as well.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
thing, you might be able to, and they're rare, but you can find practitioners that are both an MD, a medical doctor, and they do other treatments like acupuncture, naturopathy and stuff. They're fairly more rare, at least in the Midwest, but there's a few out there.
So another thing that I want to pick up on, Josh, is what you said about being very respectful to the medical professional, and my personal experience is that there's a trick to all this. Again, real life example. My mom, who's been meditating with us now for over a year, and she takes high blood pressure. Most people in the mid 80s do. But I monitor her blood pressure every other day, and you can tell that as she practices more, her blood pressure goes down to a point where maybe it's time to cut to kind of adjust the medicine because it's actually helping her. Now, you can't go to the doctor and says, "Can I reduce the medicine or can I just not take it?" You can't do that. Actually, the doctors are much better at giving you medicine than is to take away. Like I said before, you go there and you're like 5 points above what they consider acceptable, and boom, next thing you know is that they already send a prescription to Walgreens and you're supposed to pick it up. and and but then now if you want them to take it off, they won't do it. And
Well,
so
see,
you have to.
go ahead.
Yeah. So let me just finish. So what I did, this is again, I'm not giving all advice. I'm just sharing with you my experience. I go to the doctor and they say, "You did such a great job. It's amazing. My mom is actually, being cured. Look at his blood pressure. Can we cut it in half?" So he says, "Oh yeah, sure. Why not?" Go ahead, Josh.
That's what I
Yeah.
was going to say. Yeah, the respect, that's kind of a reverse psychology a little bit. But yeah, it all depends on the doctor. And you can just, yeah, use Denny's approach there. You can also say, hey, look, I've been keeping track of this blood pressure. Here's the time and date. Here's what happens. Here's a correlation. It doesn't necessarily mean causation, but here's all this after the time. What do you think about what is your protocol for eventually lowering medication if the conditions improve? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can always ask for another if you just not get a good vibe or a good feeling, or you figure that you're just not getting health the best benefits. You're always welcome to change doctors as well and second
That's right.
opinions too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. And so now, these are not. I mean, these are open secrets. Okay. So what causes high blood pressure? What causes high blood pressure? So, um, A lot of that is behavior. It's just behavior or environmental. If you take a lot of salt, salt tend to absorb, the sodium in the salt absorb water, and so now you just have higher volume of blood, you know, in your body, and your heart has to work harder. So therefore, high blood pressure. That's a no-brainer. If you smoke cigarette, it depletes oxygens in your body, and so in order to supply the same nutrient, your heart has to work harder. Similarly, alcohol. If you drink coffee or you drink tea with a lot of caffeine, those are stimulants. Or if you take substance, those are stimulants. High blood pressure is what you want. Or if you exercise, or actually one of the things that happens a lot, and again, this is from experience, is that a lot of the immigrant elders, they don't like to turn on the heat because it's waste of money. They didn't grow up with that. So they don't turn on the heat, and then you go to the house and it's very cold. No wonder the high blood pressure goes up, because their vessels are not as elastic as it should be. So anyway, so this is just for completeness sake, we put it there. The thing that we really understood is that high blood pressure comes from stress. Okay, we understand that. Everyone understands that. What they don't understand is that what causes the stress, right? So we had talked about this, that stress comes from this thing called a fight or flight, and it's a nervous system that we have. That consists of a bunch of systems. It's called autonomous. This is important. Autonomic. So this is something that happens and you can't control it. Okay, it's meant to be a survival technique. It's part of an evolution. This thing called the sympathetic autonomous nervous system. Once it's activated, then it sends out all kinds of stress hormone. And one of the ones that people talk a lot about is the cortisol, which goes through the bloodstream from your adrenaline, from your adrenal, which is that little piece of triangular hormonal gland sitting on top of your kidney. It sends the cortisol in the bloodstream to the liver first, and then the liver receives that, and then it sends it to the heart, and then the heart stops pumping because that's what you want. You sense stress, and now you either run towards the danger or you run away from the danger. And then over time, we have something called adrenal fatigue or adrenal disorder. So that's stress. Okay, a lot of our high blood pressure are stress related. And we kind of know that. Everyone kind of know that. That's why, the yoga and Tai Chi and, there's so many exercises that we do to kind of relieve ourselves of the stress. What is next known is the other reasons for having high blood pressure is that you actually have an underlying deficiency. You actually have underlying disease, sickness. Some part of your body, some organs, some vital organs are just not receiving the nutrients that they need. And so this has to do with bad circulations. Okay, there's just something wrong with you. Either you are overweight, or there's something wrong with you, and now your heart is trying to overcompensate. So the problem with that is that if you treat high blood pressure as a sickness, and the first thing you do is to bring down the blood pressure, bring down the symptom, as opposed to searching for the cause, then the person becomes sicker and sicker and sicker. They start to lose their immune system, and so when something like the coronas comes, then it's really now you're in deep doo-doo. Okay, that's what we said. All right. So what's interesting is that what does qi has to do with that? What is the traditional medicine, the kind of the Chinese people with the qi and the Indians with the qi? How did they view that? Josh, you want to add something?
Yeah, before you jump in there, that's a good
Yeah.
it's a good point for me to jump in. This is why the standard generalized advice is diet and exercise, right? Well, we're not going to get into diet here so much, but the exercise is what we're about to get into, or what could be considered exercise, but it's way more beyond just regular exercise. The stuff Denny's going to talk about is focus mainly on very precise health benefits, and also if that's right, but also in general too. There's just so many different benefits and layers, and you can go back to the last show and hear more about that, and we'll get into some of that, I guess. The thing though, we practice mindfulness, right? Because we can never have enough mindfulness. So we can eventually notice, where does that stress come from? How are we triggered by certain things in our environment and other inputs and outputs and our own thoughts, emotions, and sense input? Do certain things trigger stress more than others? And we can notice that, and that's the first step. So then if we notice that we have a choice, a choice opens up, there's a space opens up, so where we notice that we can make we can make other choices. So we think about the power of the mind, right? So or just our environment as well. So if you notice, if you're out in nature where you're feeling very relaxed and there's no predators, right? And now notice how if you go try to dart through, a downtown city area in the middle of rush hour and everybody's frantically in a hurry, how you feel in your mind and body compared to when you're in a natural, relaxed setting. So, I mean, that's something most people can immediately relate to, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And, the power of the mind, everything, the first line, half line of Dhammapada, I said this before, one translation is, everything is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind, right? So everything happens in the mind. For this pen, this was an idea in somebody's mind before it became actualized, right? The computer we're watching or seeing or listening to, somebody had an idea for this before it became a physical reality. So our mind is very important. So it doesn't necessarily mean we have to disregard our body to focus on the mind as well. There's a synergistic connection between the two, and the breath helps link with that. But anyway, I might be going a little off, so that's what I've got, and now we can get into.
Thank you for that, Josh. Let me. As you're speaking, I'm trying to think of something that kind of follow up on what you said. That we use the term self-healing quite a bit. And the idea is that, again, this is kind of going back to just what we said about earlier about the medical industry, that they're the doctors are the specialists, they're the professional, they're there when you have sickness, okay, whether it's a broken bone or a blocked blood vessel or whatever, they're just like, they go in there and they just do what they have to do, and now you survive. That's a good thing, right? But what we're talking about here is really taking control of your own health by being very conscious of what it takes to heal. Okay, but the key word here is self-healing. So the question is, what is self? So now that opens up a lot of perspective, because different perspective, because if you focus yourself as being the body, okay, that's one way of healing, just healing the body. Okay, but if you expand that and going more towards the Eastern philosophy of what a self is, then it includes not just the body, but the energy. And the energy just doesn't mean like, you do weightlifting and all of a sudden your body heats up. It's not even that. It's really, I'll talk about that more in a minute, but it's really more of an electromagnetic energy that is almost in parallel to your physical the physical presence. So then from a Buddhist standpoint, for those who are studying mindfulness, our self consists of the body, the energy, the chi, plus what we call quote unquote a mind, right? Which is a little bit more than the spiritual part. It's actually much deeper than that, and we're not going to go into that. So again, it's really, what do you think is you? Okay, and if you understand what is you, then you can start to do self-healing. So for what we do is, our healing is really about the body and the mind, and healing the chi is a bridge between the body and the mind. Okay?
And if you're interested in the mind, we did a show on what happens to your mind when you meditate. You can look that one up, and it's so much easier if you incorporate some of this into your natural your lifestyle, right? And it's preventative. What they say, like an ounce of prevention is more than a pound of cure. It's an old saying.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So one thing before I go to the next slide is that just want to make sure that this whole presentation is invitation, is to invite you to join us on a practice where you get to experience the things that we talk about. Okay. All right.
In the body's natural inbuilt function is to heal. So when all the conditions are right, or the space is held and provided the information and the right environment, then the body's natural response is to heal. Usually,
We are
if
the
nothing's in the
only
way
we
of
are the
that.
only species in the entire animal kingdom that have forgotten how to heal, how to self-heal.
And that's wild because we don't need to be totally conscious of how the
Yeah.
body is so vast and complex. It just knows how to heal on its own.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't have to be involved in it, at least in every little cell doing this and that.
Not only wild animal knows how to heal, how to self-heal. Even your pet knows how to self-heal. If you take your dog out to the park, they disappear in the bushes, because they're looking for the grass or whatever that, and they chew on that because they need it, right?
That's
Yeah.
one
Okay.
saying too, that a lot of the medicinal plants we need a
Yeah.
lot of times somehow just grow nearby where we live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes yeah, it's
Okay,
fascinating.
our topic has to do with the word chi, and so one of the things that I wanted to remind ourselves is that the Chinese language is a complicated language in that a single character has no unambiguous meaning. Okay, a single character, if you just say one word, it's very difficult. Very few instances where you can just say one word and has a clear meaning. So the word qi has no meaning because you can conjugate it with different things and it can mean different things. So when the Chinese people say qi, they actually meant oops, hang on. They actually meant 学气. It's two words. 学气. Okay, so that's how you write it. Now, the first word is 血, it means blood. So when we talk about qi, it's half of it is the circulation, is the supply of your nutrients, supply of oxygens, and supply of your immune system. Okay, so qi is 血气. All right. Now, qi by itself is actually made of two words. The first part is this one right here is air, and then this one right here is rice. So when the Chinese talk about qi, they meant vitality. It's oxygen plus nutrients. Okay, it's what you consume, what you digest that gives you energy. Now, what's even more interesting is that if you go to the Qigong master, and often they will write the word qi in an old form, in a very old form. And the old form is made of two words. That means no fire. So basically, the minute that you mention qigong, it is precisely what causes high blood pressure. The lack of qi means that you have high blood pressure. Or that the fact that if you have high blood pressure, it's an indication that your qi is out of whack, is bad. Because qi, the word qi is 血气, which means circulations and stress. Okay. Now,
Denny, can you go back to that slide real quick? A couple of quick thoughts here. Yeah, circulation is blood, but it's also other functions in the body and energy circulation as well too, right?
yes, yes,
And then
yes.
this no fire. This goes along with one definition of the word nibbana, which means to cooling. They meant that they used to say like we're going to nibbana the rice. I've heard this said where you just set
Mm-hmm.
it off and let it cool a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
vitality. I've also heard once. I told Denny this that somebody said that they got the name from the sound that sometimes the lid would fly off a pot of rice
Mm-hmm.
unexpectedly, but not all the
Mm-hmm.
time because it was just some kind of energy that happens sometimes, this vitality. But I
Yeah,
don't know. That could just be a
yeah,
wise tale. I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. The other day, I was talking about the difference between the Western approach in understanding our existence versus the Eastern approach in understanding existence. And use the example of a airplane. So that the Western approach to understanding our body and is that they think of us as a collection of mechanical parts. So like the airplane has an engine, has a wing, has a tail, has a landing gear, has all that. And so if you're losing speed, you run to the engine and you're trying to figure out, why the engine is not working. Or if you don't have enough altitude, there's something must be wrong with the flap. So every part has a function, and every function is very clear. And when all the parts, each perform their own individual functions, then the body would have, then you would have a good outcome. That's not the way at all for the Eastern medicine. The Eastern medicine doesn't think of these things as individual. They think of it as a system. So a mechanics that is educated in the Eastern approach, if you say you're losing speed, he goes to the tail and he starts, tightening up the tail. And you say, well, what's going on? And so when we talk about qi now, we're actually talking about very complex. Josh liked this picture, so I have to put that up. So the Chinese people, they think of the body as this really complex, not just biological, but electromagnetic system, electromagnetic. And so you could have these. So to kind of make the long story short, is that they believe that there's these energy lines that runs throughout our body, and there's 12 of them that has to do with 12 important organs. I'll come back in a minute for that. And then there's 8 more that's called the extraordinary vessel that runs through your body. And so each organ has its associated energy line, and the energy lines are not just localized with the organs. So for example, this morning I did the exercise of the kidney, work on the kidney. Well, the kidney runs from the small toe, all the way up to the top of the head, and you actually have to massage the bottom of your feet, to massage your kidney. All right. Now, very often people will say, hey, we are good Western scientists. We know how these things are supposed to work, and we have dissected all the different forms of human body, and we can never find them. So what's going on? Well, let me use an example of the Earth and its magnetic field. The Chinese discovered that the Earth has a magnetic field. Not only that, but they discovered that the stars, the sun and the moon and the Jupiter, they all have magnetic field. Well, it wasn't until they invented a compass that they could convince people that that is the case. Right. So you say, well, forget about, let's say before the compass, and someone comes to you and says, there is this magnetic field in the Earth, and you say, no, I cut up all the rocks and I see nothing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Denny. The point you mentioned earlier about the individual approach, sometimes that could turn into like whack-a-mole, right? You go to one part, you fix that, but then it pops up somewhere else, that old game. But yeah, if you view it as a holistic system, that's different. And I don't see where these two approaches couldn't, complement each other and work together as well. And then what you said about just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. The most thing we deal with every day is this force we call gravity, right? So just because we can't see it directly every moment, we have to experience it through a different object, right? We have to like throw a ball up in the air and say, well, this is consistent in our experience, but we can't really, pinpoint it, gravity and say, oh, there it is. That's where it's coming from, right? Directly. And then, well, last thing, these just a little more verbal description. So you can go in the post on this or look this up on the YouTube to watch it. But yeah, Denny's posted a detailed diagram of the meridian systems and the energy points, and then the other one is the 12 main meridians, corresponding with each of their organs, and the diagram of where the meridian flows and corresponds with each organ. It's pretty a lot of information, very good.
Right. So the next slide, I will make an attempt to simplify all of that. So just for now, it's perfectly okay that you're confused, and because I am too. But the point the point to be make here is that the Chinese have identified 12 vital organs, and interestingly, none of the reproductive organs is considered vital.
We won't go into politics or sex.
We won't do that. So for example, you have the heart that goes from your pinky all the way into your heart, and then also distributed into your small intestines. You have your right here. You have your lung. Right here, you have a liver. Now, this is a good chart. So the Chinese not only believe that there are 12 vital organs, they believe that each of them are active at a specific time. Okay, so this is important. So for me, I'm very big on self-healing, as you can tell. I can't do all 12, but I focus on a few important ones. So I focus on the lung and the heart and the pericardium. Okay, so we talk about that. I also focus on the kidney and the small intestines. Okay, so particularly in the small intestines is what I eat in terms of soluble fiber, water soluble fiber, and probiotics and all that. Kidney in terms of the exercise that I do to kind of relieve the stress. Interestingly, I also care a great deal about my liver and my gallbladder, which are the two important organs to detox. I do that by really, really careful about when I sleep. I don't sleep any later than 11 o'clock. So according to this chart, it says that these two organs start to be active and start your detoxification process right around 11 o'clock. And each one of them takes 2 hours. Okay?
That's 11 o'clock in the evening or morning?
No, that's 2300. So that's in the evening.
Oh yeah, I see now. Okay. And then
Okay.
Denny, what do you do specific exercises targeted at those organs and
Yeah,
meridians?
so we'll talk about that. We will talk about that. In fact, we do that every day, every Saturday, every day and every Saturday. Okay.
Okay, the
Uh,
reason I ask is
yeah.
I don't remember a gallbladder one, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's what I said. Well, I'll talk about
Oh
that.
yes,
I'll talk
yes,
about it.
because of the
We
timing.
do actually a little bit on the gallbladder, but I mainly do it by sleeping properly. Just
Gotcha.
let it
Yes,
heal.
because
See, this is what Josh said that was important is that our body is actually capable of self-healing if you just give it a chance.
exactly. And one other point I forgot is the mind. So there's people that do meditation techniques. You get into a meditative state, and then they just drop a word in. Notice your response when you say the words like ease, kindness,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
happiness, but then they'll
Yeah,
go in with a negative,
yeah,
fear,
yeah,
sickness,
yeah,
terror, and you can once you're in a more receptive state and a more subtle state, you can notice how that language can affect our experience
yeah,
directly.
yeah, yeah. And we have a chart that maybe touch on that. Okay. So I want to. So I was thinking about. I gotta simplify this. Okay. I gotta simplify this. So this is how I simplify. So the 12 vital organs are arranged in a grid, and so the lung is obvious. The heart is sort of obvious. And so what is the pericardium? Well, the Chinese actually think of the pericardium, which is the muscle and the vein outside of the heart, as the true heart. And what's inside the heart has something to do with another organ, which I will explain in a minute. But together, it is the heart. So when you say Chinese, when you ask the Chinese, "Are you happy?" and they would say, "Yes, very open heart." That's happy. Okay. Now
Yeah, it means
then,
you're not closed down, right? Yeah,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
open and ready to send out and receive, right? Because you're
Yeah,
not in a
yeah.
state of fear
That's
closing
right.
down.
That's right. That's right. Then there's the large intestines and the small intestine, and then there's something that called the triple warmer, which actually have no parallel in the Western medicine. It's kind of like you have the chief for each of the branch of the military, and then you have like the Joint Chief of Staff. Okay, so the triple warmer kind of that one guy that really have no specific responsibility other than to make sure everybody talks to everybody. Okay. Then you have the spleen, the liver, the kidney, the stomach, the gallbladder, and the bladder, and they come in pair. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the meridian line that are associated with these 12 organs, um, six of them has to do with the hand, and six of them has to do with the feet. Okay, so there's six of these that originated from the hand, goes into the inside, and then eventually distribute somewhere else. Some of them goes on top of the head, and some will go. Now, what's interesting about this is that if you look at these 12 organs, and I ask you, what are the six that you must have in order to survive? It turns out that they are the ones that are associated with the fingers. For example, you must have a lung, you must have a heart, whether it's a heart, the core, the heart, or pericardium. It turns out that you must have a large intestines or some short section of it, because otherwise you can't extract the water and you would die from that. The triple warmer, obviously some kind of coordination. The small intestines, you can cut that up, you can shorten it from, very tall, but you need it. It's the only, it's a vital organ that actually absorbs nutrients. So these six you must have. You must have. Splint, if you don't have that, the splint goes with the stomach would take over. The liver, you have it, you must have it, but you don't have to have the whole of it. It will grow. This is the only organ in the body that will grow back. The kidneys, you have two. Okay, you need kidney, but you got two. And so the stomach, lots of people have they have stomach cancer and they have to cut it up, and so they don't need the stomach. They eat more fluid. Gallbladder is associated with the kidney. Same thing. If you lose the gallbladder, the kidney will take over. The bladder, lots of people have no bladder. Okay, that's interesting that these six are more critical than these six. That the one that associated with the hand is more critical than the feet. Then they're divided into yin and yang. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This is very critical. Out of the six that are associated with the hand, three of them are yin and three of them are yang. Okay. Now, some people would say, the yin are the one that actually start at the fingers, at the very extreme of the fingers, then they go inside. Not necessary, not necessary. But still, it's the yin and the yang. And by the way, the yin and the yang doesn't actually mean men and women. It's just like duality. It's just you need that. And sometimes it means this, and sometimes it means that. The other way you can understand the 12 vital organs is in terms of what is called the triple warmer. That if you think of your upper torso, there's actually in three sections. There's a part that is above the diaphragm, there's a part that is below your belly button, and then there's a part that is in the middle, which is between your diaphragm and your belly button. So the upper warmer, this is in Chinese upper warmer. There's a phrase called the upper warmer is like the fog. Upper warmer is like the fog. It contains the lung and the heart, or the heart and the pericardium. So the Chinese think of the lung not just an organ that absorbs oxygen. They don't think of the heart as something that just pumps blood. It's actually together is the organ that distributes the vitality to your body, like the fog would moisturize the earth. Okay. In fact, we talk about this two energy point called the gate to the cloud. It's the most important point for the lung, which is the most important organ for the 12 vital organs, and it's the point where you have to open up, so that it spreads the nutrient, the vitality to your body, like the
circulation again.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting is that when they talk about the middle part, they're now talking, now these are in pairs. So the liver has the gallbladder, the stomach has the splint. And the word that they use is that they said the middle warmer is like the foam. So this is like the foam when you make wine. This is fermentation. So this is when you take food and it takes time to ferment and then ultimately extract out the nutrient. And then finally, the lower warmer is the one that contains the small and the large intestines and the bladder plus the kidney. They call it the lower warmer is like the water in the gutter. Okay, so this is the toxins that you have to, the toxin and the waste that you have to dispense from your body. So this explains the 12 organ and how it's distributed through our body.
For anybody with just on audio, I'll read the yin and the yang real quick. So the yin, Denny's got, is reactive, and that includes the hand, lung, pericardium, and heart, and the feet, spleen, liver, kidneys. And then for the yang, the active, for the hand, you've got large intestine, triple warmer, small intestine, and for the feet, stomach, gallbladder, and bladder.
Correct. Okay. Again, now that we have understand this qi and how the Chinese associate the qi with the 12 organs and associated with the vitality of these 12 organs, it's important for me to, before I go into the slide, is talk about the qi is really because all these organs, in order for it to be vital, it relies on electricity. Okay, our body is really just a network of electricities, whether it is in the blood or in the nerve or in the muscle or everything else. Okay, and so
Right,
when
but
you
and realize that it's also associated with magnetism and chemicals, right? So there's electrochemical electromagnetism as well, right? It doesn't
correct,
happen in
correct, correct.
isolation, but yes,
Correct,
predominantly,
correct.
right?
So when you have, so that's correct. So when you have electricity, you have magnetism. Okay. So when you have electricity, you have magnetism. So the chi is really an electromagnetic energy that is emulated by your vital organs as your body function. The most obvious one would be how when blood flows in your body, it generates this very complex electromagnetic field. And when you have electromagnetic field, you have this thing called the electromagnetic dipole. And so those becomes your energy points. So it's really interesting, for example, that the Chinese think of 12 vital organs and 365 pressure points.
It's
And each of
interesting.
the
I didn't
vital
know.
organs takes 2 hours, so you have 24 hours in a day. I don't know if that's just
Convenient.
coincidence or they figured this out.
And not
Okay,
to mention piezoelectric too. We've mentioned
yeah, the
piezoelectricity.
piezoelectric, I'll come to that. Thank you, Josh. I'll come to that when we get to the therapy part. Is how do we use the piezoelectric property of our body as a healing? Okay. All right. So stress. Modern day scientists, we know that stress come from essentially come from our hormonal system that our hormone goes out of whack. There's now what's interesting is that when the Chinese talks about qi, they talk about fire. There's two words that they use. One is fire in the heart and fire in the liver. Okay, but yet we know that from Western science, the two gland that is responsible for stress is either the thymus gland, which sits on top of the heart, and the adrenal gland. Okay, it is the adrenal gland that puts out the stress hormone. But keep in mind that as soon as it puts out the stress hormone, it goes to the liver. So the Chinese are not less interested in the origin of the stress hormone, but where it end up. Okay, because when your stress hormone goes to the liver, it pumps up the heart, and then and it start to put out triglyceride because you need glucose and all that. So a lot of your sickness actually comes from the fact that your liver is over medicated by your own stress hormone. So the Chinese actually believe that you become sick because you either have fire in your heart because you're not happy enough. Right? So when they talk about the pericardium and the heart is the core of the heart, which actually ties to the thymus gland. And so you got to have a happy heart, an open heart, because you need these hormone, which we now call the happy hormone. And without that, your health deteriorates. And then the other one is that if your adrenal gland get excited and it sends the cortisols and adrenaline to your rest of the body, then you get sick as well. And so, just as a review, we talk about this is what the modern scientists know, that as soon as you sense danger, this autonomous nerve system, this sympathetic, the one on the right, got activated because and it start to go to the list, dilate the pupil, increase the heartbeat. Every one of them are a result of your stress hormone. Your liver start to send the building blocks for glucose, which is called triglyceride. You shut down your digestive system, which is bad. It also shuts down your reproductive systems. Okay, that's why when I have this is a direct experience. When I first got married, I went to the doctor and says, no, I don't know what happened. It's been 3 years. He said, well, take a vacation. You don't need medicine. Anyway, so we know a lot about fight or flight. We do know a lot about fight, but one thing you have to know is that this is an autonomous system. You don't turn it off. You don't turn it off. It turns off by itself because it's part of evolution. Okay, and without that, you don't survive as a species. Okay.
And also realize, Shifu's talked about this before, that there are some yogis with such, advanced meditative powers. They can actually go in and control some of this, or not control, but influence some of this, I guess, consciously as well. I mean, it's a very high advanced state, but there are regular meditations for dealing with these organs. I'm sure Denny's familiar with a bunch of them. I know the common one in the Theravada tradition is the 32 parts of the body. And a lot of these organs are into that. And it's, yeah, if you're interested in that, you can Google 32 parts of the body too. And, if you want to see images of these, if you can't, it's just Google the endocrine system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think so. I think you can actually sort of it become extraordinary technique. But for most of us, that's probably much harder to do, to actually go in and change a otherwise autonomous system into non-autonomous. Okay. But so that we turns out that we do have a different system called the parasympathetic system. Unfortunately, not much is known about that. Okay. I mean, for as much as you couldn't just go in and fix and activate the sympathetic one, it's hard to activate the parasympathetic one too, because they're both autonomous. And the only thing you need to know is that autonomous doesn't know how to turn itself off. There's no off button. So when you see someone, no, so this is an important point. So we know we're under stress, and so we think that, well, if we just kind of relax, like just watch a comedy, sit on the couch, that would that help? Yes, it would help, but it still doesn't turn it off.
Well,
It
that's the thing. So, right,
accumulates.
it
Yeah,
runs its own course and it'll shut
yeah.
off when it needs to shut
So
off, right?
so so
But
you
we can't
actually,
know, but we can notice, we can have mindfulness and know when it
yes,
goes on and
yes,
off.
exactly,
That's where
exactly.
we know,
So
because then,
that's
like I
what we
said
know.
earlier,
So
we have choices. Yeah.
there are things that work. So there are things that work, that actually can turn on, or at least push the parasympathetic nerve towards itself being turned on, and that has to do with this. There are many. Okay, there are many. So we're not saying that this is the only one. This is one. This is the one we know. Okay. And it has to do with this technique called the microcosmic orbit. Now, I need to explain. Um, if you say something is microcosmic, is there a macrocosmic? And the answer is yes. There is both a micro and a macro. But before you even talk about it as a name for the meditation technique, the origin of that term comes from the astronomers, the Chinese astronomers. So as they were observing the moon and the earth and the sun and the Jupiter, because it's the biggest star that they can see, that's the only one they can see with the eye, they understand that the earth actually turns on its own. And so each of that orbit is a microcosmic orbit. Okay. They also understand that the Chinese never thought that the Earth was flat. They didn't have to overcome that. They knew that from day one, that everything is round. And so the other thing they noticed that is that the Earth also orbit around the sun, and they call it the macro cosmic orbit. And so when they practice this thing that they circulate the chi, on the upper torso, they call that the microcosmic orbit. And then when they start to integrate the entire body, then that becomes the macrocosmic orbit. Now, first of all, in addition to the 12 meridian that has to do with the 12 vital organs, I mentioned that there's 8 more vessel, conduits, and the Qigong master actually used all 8. We only use 2. And the name of those 2, one I mentioned last time, which is called the governing vessel, which is the one in the back. And then the other one is called the conceptual vessel, which is the one in the front. And it's actually like the boulevard, it's like the main conduit. And the 12 vessel actually interconnects back into this big conduit. Okay. Now, what's interesting, and I'll come to the last time when we did this a month ago, Josh asked me, why is it called conception? Right? Why is it called conception? So he challenged me, so I had to go study that. And it turns out that the word called conception rhymes with the word that we use for pregnancy. And so this line, this energy line that starts at the very bottom of your upper torso, which is an energy point that is between your reproductive organ and the opening of your bowel. There's an energy point there, and that's a starting point for both. And so if you go in the front, it goes all the way up to the lower part of your lip. That's called the conception vessel, and the Chinese name it that because they noticed that all pregnant women has a line in the belly. And when they gave birth, after they gave birth, they disappear. So they start to believe that that's a reflection of the baby in the womb. And in fact, out of the 12 organ, we remember we have 6, 3 from the hand, 3 from the foot, that we call the yin organ. Those 6 are associated with the conceptual organ, the conceptual vessel. So if you subdivide it like this, you subdivide it like those six, there are the 6 organs that the fetus must have because it's a vital, before it's a vital organism. So for example, the ones in the back, like the bladder, they don't need for now, initially. Then the bladder they don't need, the intestines they don't need, okay? The splint they don't, so there's a lot they don't need. But the thing they do need is that they need the three from your hand, which are the lung, the heart, and the pericardium. Without that, they're not vital. Then they need 3 more. The 3 more is that they need the liver, because they need to start detox the body, okay? They need the kidney, okay, because that's also your immune system. And then they need one more thing, which is their the splint. They also need the splint because again that's that's where they. So those 6 organs are associated with the front, and that's why it's called the yin, which is like the maternal or the reactive or the one in the shadow, whereas the one in the back are the one that they develop later. Okay, and of course once they have all 6 or 12, then they are standalone. They're ready to be born. And so the Chinese actually have a different concept of what is considered prenatal versus postnatal. It really has nothing to do with time of birth, but really has to do with when the baby is considered vital, even with the assistance of the mother, and when the baby will become vital without the assistance of the mother. Okay, so this is actually if you're talking about now, of course, now again, the Chinese, they don't think in pieces. They don't say, okay, here's, we're going to deal with, you got stress, we're going to deal with the stress. You got problem in the circulation, we're going to deal with circulation. They don't separate these things. They are one. Okay, so this actually helps with your stress as well as your circulation, but it definitely helps your stress because essentially this is the only stage in your entire existence where you were stress-free.
Well, as much as possible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, as much as possible. Yeah. When
given our strange circumstances, but Denny, yeah, and then it's called conception vessel. The conception is when the egg meets the sperm as well. That's the term for conception, right?
Except that it's not a great translation. It's not a great translation.
And I don't know if you mentioned the back one. They call it the governing vessel, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if you've read that term or what. The other thing, a couple things that you said, Jupiter, you said it was the only planet visible from by the night, but it might have been back then. But now, during certain times, you can see like Mars, Venus, and I'm trying to think if there's another one. It's certain, maybe other ones at certain special times.
No, I misspoke there, but
it's okay.
But definitely is the one that has the biggest effect on the tie.
Yes, because it's so massive, right?
And it's so massive, yeah.
And then
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then the spleen, Western medicine really doesn't put much importance on the spleen at all. However, Chinese medicine does, right? So,
Yeah.
yes. And then the other thing, could we just briefly mention the technique here, the microcosmic orbit, so people kind of know, because Denny leads this technique. Maybe I can give just a brief summary, and Denny can correct what I do for a second.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead, please.
So you bring the awareness. There's another medical $2 term from the spot Denny was talking about, the genitals and the beginning of the colon, the perineum. So from you bring your attention from the perineum, and on the in breath, you go up the front part of the middle of the body to around, the point on the under the nose, and then on the out breath, right, and then it goes up around the top of the head on the out breath, all the way back down to that starting point. And I just and I came up with this thing. Well, I'll let Denny go in there. That else came up with the other day about that.
Okay. All right, let me just quickly catch up on what you said about the spleen and why the spleen is so important. Because the spleen is the beginning of your lymph node. So you must have that.
Beginning of your what? I'm sorry.
Your lymph node.
Oh yes. Okay. So it has an interaction with the lymphatic system. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we have enough time to go through the nitty gritty of the technique. But let me just say that I usually, when I teach that, I usually teach it in two parts. The first part is just abdominal breathing. Okay, just breathe in, push down. Let the diaphragm be pushed down, open the stomach. Breathe out, collapse the stomach and so forth. And it's particularly easy to do after we do the 5 breathing exercise. And just that by itself is tremendous, because what it does is that it massages your kidney, it massages your liver, and it massages your small intestines. Okay? So by that it already because so it's like going to the spa. Okay, just imagine like going to the spa. So just abdominal. Now, because I think most likely for Josh, but definitely for me, is that I'm almost 99% abdominal breathing now, just because we've been doing it for so. That's one. The other one is that as you do abdominal breathing, and Josh mentioned that a little bit, and that's really comes more towards the therapy part. Is that we understand the qi as a magnetic field is a direct indication of the vitality of your 12 organs, but by working the qi, we actually improve our health. And so how do you work on the qi? Well, you go back to the body again. You realize that a lot of your body part are piezoelectric, all your bones and muscles, and your intestines are piezoelectric. And so this abdominal breathing actually, by moving the small intestines and large intestines, is actually generate a minute amount of piezoelectricities. And because the length of the intestines, if you take your intestines, you stretch it out, it's typically about 6 times the height of every individual, whether you're short or tall. There's a lot of surface area. And you know that capacitors require surface area. So it is a great way to store static electricity. And now what you have to do is you have to utilize that electricity, and you do that with your mind. And because between the left and the right brain, we have this thing called the longitudinal fissure. And that, so some people, they actually think of that as the place where you generate your brainwave. And so what you have to do is you have to calm yourself. You have a balance between the emotional and the rational part of your mind. You relax, and that creates a electrical potential. And now all the static electricity you generate in your abdomen start to move, and it moves upward through your spine, which is very conductive. Very, very conductive. And now you just cycle that electricity. And once you have electricity, then it generates its own magnetic field. And now it pulls the other parts up. So now what you have is not MRI as in imaging, but MRT as in therapy. It's magnetic resonance therapy. Now, it's a lot more fun doing it than it's explaining it, okay? So again, we invite you to come. One last slide. Oh, sorry. one last night. What other things can you do to enhance blood circulation? So there's a whole slew of things that we do. We do joint exercise. We do stretch exercise. Again, we this is mindful exercise. So this is not, like your body is one and your mind is somewhere else. Okay, so we constantly aware of what we're doing, using a brain wave to guide our body parts, the electricity generated by our body parts. So we do joint, we do stretch. This is great. This is 5 breathing exercise. This is really amazing. Really helps three things. One is that it trains your diaphragm so that you can actually now do abdominal breathing. Second is that the way that Master has choreographed this is that it actually deliver oxygen to your triple warmer in your lung and your heart, and then below your 3 parts. So if you study each of the movement, it does specific things. Then the lastly is that it's a meditation. It's a mindfulness in motion, because you're actually you're very mindful. Then there's two. Some might call it qigong, and some might call it Daoyin. We had a last talk was about that. So we do all that. But one thing that we do is that this is kind of a strange thing that we do is that we actually like pat our very gently patting our meridian points, our energy points. And we do more than this, but the one thing that we do is we try to open up the blockage in our lung meridian, which starts with the thumb. And the two most important energy point is right here, right at our elbow, and then right here, which is really like at a collarbone. So we would pat that one. So that take care of that. That's a gate to the cloud. Then we take care of the one on the top, which is a gallbladder. Then we do another one here, which has to do with the pericardium, which is not shown here. Then the most important one is that we do that on the elbow, which is, I didn't translate, but it's all three. It's the heart, the lung, and the pericardium. And this one shows how we do that on the top. Okay. And
On
again,
the inside of the elbow, right? Not the
inside the
outside.
elbow, yeah. So we stretch the elbow. When we do this, we 4 fingers on top and the center of the palm. So we're touching the 4 points here and then 1 point here. Okay.
And
But
then,
again,
Denny,
it's all mindful. It's all mindful. Okay.
exactly. So you're incorporating the best of both worlds there. And then
Yeah.
when what you said might be considered qigong is Yijin Jing, and can you pronounce the other one there on the list?
Yeah. The other one is called, okay. So there's a lot of controversy on which is which, or whether they are actually one, just called different name, or whether there was two and one was lost. I mean, you can get a dozen of PhDs trying to figure that out now. I'm less concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the lineage, who taught me, and more important than that is that how do I feel, how do I benefit. And so I just give it that name because we have two things. One is that we have something that was taught by Master Jiru, who learned it first from his grandfather, who was a Shaolin martial artist, actually also the bodyguard of Dr. Sun Yat-sen during the revolution. And then he learned it again from an abbot Minji, who was the 49th abbot of a temple in China called the Tinning Temple. And the founding abbot was a monk who was the disciple of the fourth patriarch of Zen Buddhism. The
Chan, yes.
first patriarch being Buddha Dhamma, who is supposedly the inventor of Yijin Jing. So I'm reasonably assured that we have, that I can draw a line. But more than that is that I benefit, I see the benefit in me and how it helps me in my meditation. Yeah. Now the other one.
We go ahead. We've talked about maybe doing a show. Denny's written articles on this, but maybe doing a show around this if we can be diplomatic and it can be helpful. But that's for another time, perhaps.
Yeah, correct. So then the other one, Xi Shui Jing, I just give it a name, like being very distinct. But in reality, it's just another method that was passed on and this one is very popular in Taiwan, and I like it. So a lot of the padding of the meridian point, a lot of stretching comes from that. And the word Yi Jing means exchanging tendon. The word Xi Shui means cleansing of the marrow. Now, some of that is mistranslation, because what they're really talking about is the spine. That's all they talk about, is really the spine. So I believe that they actually people think that they actually reverse aging, because when you work so much on the spine get oxidized as you get old. All bones get oxidized, particularly the spine get oxidized. So you're losing volume of the marrow. And
And
so
that's
this
another thing
this
with
reverse the process, yeah.
the nervous
Hmm.
system. If I'm getting this right, there's two other nervous systems: the central nervous system, which consists mostly of the spinal cord in the spine, and the brain, right? If I'm getting that
Hmm.
right, we can look this up. And
Hmm.
then the peripheral nervous system, which is
Hmm.
the one some say that's for more sensing subtle energies. But again,
Hmm.
I don't know hardly anything about that, but it's there for research.
Okay, so again, as I said, this is the invitation to join us on our Saturday practice, which we now have two sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, 8 o'clock and 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So it turns out that the morning one is very good for the Europeans, and the afternoon one is very good for the Asians. So we actually have students from UK and all over. So we've been having more than 250 students now, combined, and there are any number of ways you can join. You can actually join Insight Timer through Insight Timer, which is an app that has a lot to offer. You really should check that out. It's completely free. We also livecast on Facebook, livecast on YouTube. Eventually, we'll livecast on LinkedIn, but for now, at least there's a link to the YouTube video. We have, Josh and I, we have a Patreon page where we try to put together a lot of material, including, for example, today's PowerPoint presentation. And then finally, Josh, you have something that you want to talk about?
Well, it's my website's integratingpresence.com if you want to check out my work. If you want to see some of these videos, dennykmu.com/AUA to see some of these
Oh,
exercises.
I forgot that one.
That's
Yes, I
okay.
forgot that
Yeah,
one. So
and
so
Mu is
that's a very, very
MIU.com.
important one. So let me flash that on the screen.
Okay.
So this is DENNYKMU.com/AUA. Ask us anything. So this is where we put our monthly monthly discussion.
And I'll have to cut this out for the audio version for Insight Timer because they don't allow promos, but that's okay. And then I just want to drop some other miscellaneous information, going back to the beginning with the Western thing. Do this very quickly so you can rewind and listen again. Some other things that might be worth looking into is the HIPAA, which is basically healthcare privacy and healthcare rights. There's something called informed consent that's helpful that doctors are required to comply with. There's a living will. And I mentioned the healthcare power of attorney as well. And then there's also something called the placebo effect and the nocebo effect as well. Those are interesting interactions between the mind and the body, is to something else to possibly look into. And then, in the Buddhist tradition, there's something called the 5 daily reflections, which are sickness, old age, death, separation, and self-responsibility. Those are kind of my terms for it. So, and this is not to get bummed out, but it's to be aligned with the truth of how things are currently. And when we're aligned with truth, we can be more happiness instead of kind of deceiving ourselves and lying to ourselves and not being honest with ourselves. And it's also to realize the preciousness and value of every moment we have here. So yeah, if you're interested in there's actually kind of more formal practices and more to read about the 5 daily reflections, you can just look that up. 5 daily
Yeah.
reflections Buddhism.
Right. Right. Thank you, Josh. So again, in the beginning of the show, I said that Josh and I are the dumb and dumber of Buddha Dharma, but
Well,
maybe
yin
we'll
and
see.
yang.
Yeah, we're not going to use that anymore. We're going to call ourselves the yin and the yang. Now, the yin and the yang actually have a lot more in common than they have in difference, right? So what Josh and I have in common is that we're kind of we want to take responsibility for our own destiny, whether it's our body or our mind. That's really, I think that's really what we do. And so we respect the medical industry. I respect a great deal of the doctor and the nurses and the pharmacists and so forth. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying anything other than that I want to take control of my own health.
Yes, that's the thing, because self-responsibility, it's not so much a burden as it is empowering, right? So it can
Hmm.
empower us
Yeah.
and allow us to help ourselves and others as well.
Yeah. And one more time, this is an invitation for all of you to join us on a Saturday practice and for us to really experience together, right? This is the experiential science that we talk about, experience. Okay?
And it looks like we didn't get to my points from last time, but I'll include those in the show notes for this for anybody interested. And who knows, maybe Denny can
Let me
address
put
those.
that up. Let me put that up.
Yeah, put on the screen.
If
Sure.
there any, yeah, we're not gonna, we have a hard stop coming up. And so if you look at that list and you say, hey, we really should be talking about this, just give us a comment and, or anything else that you want us to talk about, give us a
Well,
comment.
let me read those real quick just for the audio. How do the
Sure.
mind, exercises, therapy, substances, cosmic energy, and original essences interrelate? How did any of the Qigong or the spiritual Qigong teachings survive in texts, traditions, and our societies? Because we talked about them potentially being wiped out for a little while. And next one, does experimental versus experiential have to be a dialectic or a dichotomy? Basically meaning, how can you have both at the same time? And then how exactly did Shifu, Master Jiru, develop the 5 breathing exercises? And lastly, are there any mythological stories surrounding how various knowledges about Qi were discovered? So yeah, or just any other stories in general. But yeah, we're just going to have to leave those at that for now.
Yeah, yeah. I think it would be a good running list.
All
Anything
right,
else?
Denny. I think that's going to do it. It was a pleasure
Okay.
and very helpful. So
Okay, thank you, Josh. Thank you
thanks.
for everything. Thank you for a lot of Josh did a
Likewise.
lot of work behind the scene, getting all that material, at least asking the right question. Yeah,
Well, and then your PowerPoint presentations, that
yeah.
saves me from doing that. So I appreciate that as
Okay,
well.
okay. Well, thank you,
All right.
Josh.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Likewise. All right. Bye now.